Welcome to Lead the Way with Anna Gauker. Your guide, Anna Gauker, is on a quest of her own to find effective ways of creating change and inclusion in our communities. You have come to the right place if you believe in truth, justice, and coffee. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, this is Lead the Way, and I'm Anna Gauker. If you're new to Lead the Way, all of our content can be found on Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn, and Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. This is an episode that has been a long time in the making as we explore unique leadership styles and unexpected ways that individuals can make a big impact on their communities. I have been determined to get the chance to have a conversation with Madison entrepreneur Chiristine Ameigh. She is the owner of Slide Gourmet Potato Chips, which is on its way to sweeping the nation. We recently had the chance to talk about how her dream became a new and bigger reality than she could have ever imagined. Can you tell me a bit about growing up in Madison?
Yeah, well, I actually moved here when I was 10 and started at Lindbergh Elementary over on the north side. I lived in Stevens Point until I was 10.
Okay.
And then I went to Gompers Blackhawk Middle School. It transitioned names at that time. I don't know if you're familiar with that whole thing, but they changed the names of all the middle schools from white men to not white men in the mid-90s, which was awesome. So I was there for the Gompers to Blackhawk transition, and then I graduated from East High School in 1999. In about 2001, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, so I ended up moving out to California for a little over 9 years.
Okay.
And then I moved back 8 years ago to Wisconsin.
When you were living in California, how did your experience there shift your vision for your life?
Oh my gosh, probably in every way possible. I wasn't going to school at the time, to college, and I was waitressing, and that was a good impetus for going back to college, because I suddenly realized I sure don't want to waitress for the rest of my life. Some people can do it, and that's great, but it's exhausting and really hard work, and it was not what was right for me. And so I went back to school. I went to San Diego State and got my degree in business because I didn't know what else to get a degree in. And also because I had been a manager a lot of the courses of my different jobs that I had starting at the age of 15 up until I was in school. I met my husband, now husband. I met him out there. He had gotten out of the Marines and was going to the same community college I was going to. And coincidentally, we had both lived in Stevens Point at the same time in our lives, but we never met. So both, when we were very young, we had both lived in the Stevens Point area. And then we ended up meeting in San Diego. So that was crazy. And he went to school at Long Beach, and I went to San Diego State. So after I graduated, I moved up to Long Beach. So I was in San Diego, and then I was in Long Beach. And I love Long Beach. If I didn't want to be by my family, I could still see myself in Long Beach. But we moved back here because I miss my family. My niece and nephews were growing up, and my parents were getting older, and I just wanted to be close to them.
Is Madison like the Long Beach of Wisconsin?
I mean, in some ways, it's definitely similar, except there's not the ocean, and I love or palm trees. But it definitely, I guess, you could categorize it as similar. It's pretty diverse. I guess it's definitely more, for lack of a better word, integrated than Madison. I feel like Madison is segregated with the living situations, where different communities are. And I think that in Long Beach, it was, at least where I was living, I mean, there were other areas, but you saw everybody all the time, which was interesting, and I like that a lot. Community vibe like Madison has, like I feel like we are a community, and if you know one person, you probably know the person next to them, you just don't know how you know them, or it's like 1 degree of separation in Madison. And I got the same feeling about Long Beach, although when I was there, I wasn't as active in the community as I am here, I guess, just because I was trying to figure my life out.
You said Madison's more like segregated. That's really interesting. My impression of a lot of California is that there's more of like a economic divide. Would you say that's true or the same for Wisconsin or different?
I think it's the same and it's different. I think that the economic divide is definitely as big as it is in California as it is in Madison. It's just different the way it's seen. I don't know how else to say that. I think in California, the economic divide, yes, oh my gosh, so many BMWs and fancy cars and all the people with all the money because of Silicon Valley. But then there's the people who are picking our strawberries. You know what I mean? So like you go from one extreme to another extreme. But I kind of feel like in Madison, it's the same way. We don't necessarily have people picking our strawberries here, but we have people doing jobs. We have people doing the same tech jobs that are $100,000 jobs and other people making $7 an hour and not being able to pay their rent.
Right.
So I definitely think that even though it's visually different, I think it's just the same.
Right. And you moved back here because of family, you said?
Yeah. And my friends, I have a lot of friends that are like family. It was just, I don't know what it was, but it was just time to come home.
Right.
Myself moving away again at some point, or at least for the winter. I do miss that warm weather all year long for sure.
Right. I am sure. What gave you the idea to open your business?
Well, I would say in high school, I was pretty good friends with someone, and we had always talked about opening our own restaurant. Always talked about it. And then I left to California, and he got married and had a couple kids. And so then when I was coming back to Wisconsin, I actually thought that I was going to open a restaurant. And I had a business plan, and I had a location, and planning got turned around because the building where I wanted to open the restaurant needed a lot more work, and it was going to cost like $70,000 to $80,000 more than I had originally planned. So I decided to transfer. I had been working at Target out there as an assistant store manager. So I decided to transfer back to Wisconsin with Target and then figure out how I was going to start my own food business when I got here. And I had looked at opening a food cart because the food truck scene in California was so much fun. But the regulations in Madison were so different that I was kind of turned off by it. But then after the restaurant thing didn't work out, I was like, let's revisit the food cart. And so that's how it happened. I started like figuring out what I was going to do and building my recipes or my menu, and then figuring out where to get a food cart, which I had no idea. And I had the strangest food cart that anyone had never seen. It was amazing, but it was just like different.
Different how?
It was like designed to be a snowmobile trailer, essentially, like the shape of it. And it was made out of fiberglass, and a lot of them are made out of like metal or wood. So it was like a fiberglass mold that you'd see someone hauling a snowmobile or something like a snowmobile in it. And we had fitted it to have a window and to have water and to have all the things, like most of the things we needed, and electricity for a food cart. So
you stood out right away.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely did not fit into the other carts. Yeah, and so I was working at Target while I was opening that business, and I was running the food cart on the side at like different events and festivals while I was still working at Target. And then I just knew I couldn't last another fourth quarter or Christmas season with Target. So it was just a lot of work. And 5 years later, I was like, yeah, I don't think I can survive another one.
So how long did you do both?
From April to August.
Okay.
4 months. Not that long, but summertime.
Okay. Do you remember details about the time that you started the business and what kind of motivated you to actually go for it rather than pondering the idea and all the inspiration that was behind the idea?
I think it really was that I didn't want to be at Target anymore, and I would look at other jobs. And Target was great, and I learned a lot while I was there. But I just didn't want to be in corporate America anymore, and I felt like I needed something different. And so that was part of the motivation. But I think the rest of the motivation was just the support of my family and friends, and like my husband being willing to be like, sure, quit your job where you make really good money and maybe potentially not make any money for several years. And my parents, like everyone was just so supportive. I think that was really it. That's what allowed me to do it.
What do you wish you knew in that time about what's necessary to have a successful business?
I think I don't know if I would have taken my own advice, but I think that I would have given myself advice now to reel it in. Like I wanted to do everything. I wanted to do everything. I found a way to do lunches, but then no one was doing dinners. And I'm like, I'm going to do dinners. And then I did festivals, and I did festivals in the city. And then those were pretty good for the most part, depending on weather. So I'm like, hey, let's go out of the city to Eau Claire and to Milwaukee and try all these other festivals. And it was just like, I worked really hard for a long time trying to figure out what the right niche was or how to make the best amount of money. And it was exhausting. And I guess though, without all that crazy path, I wouldn't be where I am right now, which I'm so happy to be where I am right now. But I definitely think like reel it in. I don't know what else to say.
When you think about that time of like being everywhere all the time, trying to do all things for all groups, do you think that helped you build momentum to get bigger faster, or do you think that kind of spread you thin in the beginning?
I definitely think it spread me too thin. Maybe not in the beginning, but in the middle. It definitely spread me too thin. I mean, I still technically own 3 businesses right now, but there was one point when I'm walking, I'm sorry. There was one point when I had 5 businesses that were in my name, like 5 different LLCs, 4 LLCs and 1 nonprofit. So back then I'm down to 3 and going to be down to 2 is my goal by the end of this year. Is really exciting because I actually have time to do things.
So what are your businesses and what's the nonprofit?
So the 2 businesses that I don't have anymore, one was called Let's Eat Out, and it was a food cart organization that I started. That essentially the point of it was to help find vending opportunities for food carts. So not just for myself, but any food cart who wanted to have the opportunity in Madison. We created dinner locations. We created like a resource hub for schools to have food carts to do fundraisers. Corporations would contact us and say, hey, we want to have 3 food carts at our company picnic. So I started that, and then off of that, the Carts for Community was the nonprofit, and I partnered with 2 other people on that nonprofit. And it was to make a long story short, essentially it was getting funding to do the food cart dinners in neighborhoods where maybe traditionally people couldn't afford the dinners at the food carts.
Mm-hmm.
In the same space for them that all the other neighborhoods had to have community around eating dinner in the park together, and giving them that opportunity. So we did fundraising and raised money to provide meals in different communities around Madison. We tried to get some activities going on there, get the kids come out. We had someone who came and helped us make hula hoops. We got a DJ a couple times, just trying to like, it's called a sense of placemaking is what it was. And it's something that our former mayor was big into, and it kind of branched off something he started. And so it just, so with those, and then my food cart, and I also operate a shared commercial kitchen, and I have my potato chip business. It just was like, what are you doing to yourself? Like not a minute for anything. So we dissolved Carts for Community because one of the people I was partnering with on it actually ended up, well, you interviewed him before, Justice Castaneda.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good friend of mine. He got that job at Commonwealth, and it was like he was also being stretched too thin. So vowing that someday eventually maybe Commonwealth could start that same or similar program. It hasn't happened yet, but I know there's a lot of things going on. So since he got that job, we decided, all right, we're going to let Commonwealth hopefully eventually take this on, but we're not going to focus on it right now. And then with Let's Eat Out, it just got to be too time consuming, managing all these small business owners. And like, I could have easily spent 20 hours a week responding to emails and doing social media for that organization. And I decided that that's not what I wanted to do. And it would be a struggle with my time, but also because managing other people who aren't your employees gets to be really hard. So when you're like, you're supposed to be here now, well, if they don't show up, you can't really do anything. It's their own, you know what I mean? So it got to be such a struggle. And so another friend of mine who owns a company called Project Connect took that over and ran it for 2 years. And with the fluctuation of the food cart business and the food cart market, it just became unnecessary to have that organization anymore. When I started, like the food carts were downtown on the square and Library Mall for lunch, and that was it. They weren't anywhere else. Now they're everywhere, right? Like I feel like you can't go around a corner in the summertime and not find a food cart. So the organization basically just wasn't necessary anymore. So those 2 are gone in total from my life and from existence. But I still have the other 3, the food cart and catering business, and then the commercial kitchen that I operate, and I have tenants. I have about 12 tenants that rent space from me here, and this is also where I do my catering and potato chip production. And then the potato chip business. The goal is to sell the food cart, finish catering by the end of this year, and just have the kitchen and the potato chip business.
What helped you make that decision?
Honestly, I think ultimately after seeking advice from other people and talking to different mentors, like the potato chip business is scalable. And I've been broke for a long time trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life and what businesses are going to work and what's not. And I'm tired. And the potato chips is scalable, and it's a lot of fun, and they're really good. And I think it's just the way to go. Like I can actually build like manufacturing and create jobs and have my product all over the United States, which obviously the food cart and catering business I mean, aside from franchising, it's not really an option. So I'm excited to move in that direction.
You know, when people talk about balance,
Yes.
do you think balance is real? Is that like a real thing? Or is that like a fantasy idea that we have, that we can have balance in our lives?
I think it depends on the person. I think it depends on the person and also what your definition of balance is. I used to lose sleep when I worked at Target, and I would be worried about whatever, honestly, dumb thing that I was worried about. Like, I don't know if they set that end cap correctly. I don't think the tide was supposed to go there. Or so, you know what I mean? Like, what? Is that really important? Does that really matter? Should I really be losing sleep over that? And then when I had the food cart, I actually had 2 food carts at one point. I would lose sleep because I was working so much. Now I don't really lose sleep because I feel like I do maybe have a little more balance. But getting there is hard. You know, I have a friend who's got 2 kids, and she was working so hard at a company, and they were running her ragged and not appreciating her, and she never got to see her kids. And now she has a new job, and she has good hours, and she can work from home, and she gets to see her kids all the time. So I think to find balance, you have to evolve and also be working and looking for it.
And maybe also be satisfied with the things that you are cramming into your day, rather than, if you're not enjoying the things that you're spending your time on, it's not going to feel like balance necessarily.
Yeah, I never thought I'd like to come to work and make potato chips, but I actually like it. So I guess having a job that you like also creates balance.
What would you say entrepreneurs need? Like, what qualities are essential?
I know it sounds like maybe, I don't know if it sounds right, but I think being a hard worker. I think that some people go into owning their own business having no idea how much work it's going to be. No matter what business you start, it's going to be a lot of work. Like, I don't care if it's making potato chips or running a food cart or opening a daycare, or, you know what I mean? Like, I think no matter what, you have to be a hard worker and be willing to give it everything for at least a little while. Everything, mentally, emotionally, physically, like everything. But I also think entrepreneurs need to understand that you can't do it alone, and being willing and open to feedback and advice, and to people being your mentor. And even if you don't love their idea, still listening, because you never know when that idea might resonate a couple years down the road. I definitely think like having partnerships and being willing to listen and change based on feedback, even if you don't love the feedback. I think those are 2 really hard work, and being open to feedback from people that maybe you don't want to get it from.
How does one become a good self-promoter? Because I've noticed there's people who just have that ability to like bring things up into conversation, like, oh, I'm a great photographer, I could like do all the photography for your wedding or whatever. Like, how does one get that ability? Or, for instance, find a good mentor to help them get guidance in the right direction?
I don't think you have a choice but to self-promote when you're an entrepreneur. I don't think you can have a successful business unless you promote your business. Like, I guess at one point maybe I'd be shy or awkward about it, and now I'm just like, yeah, I make potato chips. Like that, and it starts a whole conversation, and it's interesting. But I also like to hear what other people are doing. So I guess that maybe plays a part in it. Self-promotion is also the ability to listen and hear what other people are saying about what they're doing and being open to like not just talking about yourself all the time. I think that definitely, because there's some people and you're like, all they ever do is talk about themselves. And that's great. But if I don't feel like you're really listening to me, I don't really want to listen to you either,
Right.
I think there was 2 parts to your question, and that was only one of them. Self-promotion.
No, that was excellent. I think that another thing too that I was just thinking is when you're working in potato chips all day long, you probably develop a great skill in, finding creative ways of bringing potato chips up into lots of conversations. You'd be surprised at how relevant potato chips are all the time.
That's funny and definitely true. Because our lives are centered around food. We can't survive without it. So at some point, people are going to bring up food, or we'll go to a place and they have potato chips, and I'm like, well, these aren't that good.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes good potato chips. Me.
You're right. I don't usually say it like that.
You were talking before about your kitchen and the other businesses that operate near your business. What has your experience been like collaborating with other business owners?
Oh, it's probably my favorite thing. I think the whole time I've had this business, from the food cart to the catering to the potato chips, collaborating with other businesses in like several different ways. One way is by buying their products because they make things that I don't want to make, they're good at, or that are delicious for the things that I do. So like when I cater, if I need desserts, I might buy desserts from someone who makes it here. Or if I need bread, I used to have someone who made bread in here. He's grown and gotten his own space now. So there's jams and jellies and pickles here. So like being able to bring those to different events. So utilize to support them as a small business, but also just having other people to like bounce ideas off of and collaborate with on events, or like, hey, I did this event. Have you done this event before? Is it a good event? Or are you going to do this event? Do you want to do this event with me? Or do you want to make something together to do at this event? So just like, it's a whole community of collaboration. And it's like, oh, do you have any, the simple is like, oh, do you have a cup of milk? So I don't have to run down to Walgreens to get milk, or like a pound of butter. I'll pay you back later, or I'll give you $5 right now, or whatever. So there's collaboration on so many different levels at the kitchen. And I love that. It's a lot of fun. I mean, there are its downfalls, right? Like everyone is a different human, and it's just like any job that you'd have. Working with people all the time, every day, even if they're not your same business, can get to be a lot to spend time with that amount of people. But that's like any job. So you just go with it.
When you talk about all the hours that you put into your business, how do you keep having fun in what you're doing? I
think because my business has changed and evolved so much over the last 7 years that, oh my gosh, it's almost going to be 8 years. I think the evolution it keeps you on your toes, like trying to find out what's going to be best. It's fun. If it's not fun anymore, then you shouldn't be doing it. I guess that's my answer.
And now that you are in Madison as a business owner and have this new perspective from when you lived here growing up, has it kind of changed the way you view the community?
I think the way it's changed my views of the community, or maybe it hasn't changed my views, but it's opened my eyes to the community And I try as much as I can to buy as like just even my shopping habits to buy as much local as I can. And local is like a, you know, it's a term that's not really defined depending on who you talk to. It could be local like is in Madison or local in the region like Minnesota and Illinois. Like it's something as silly as I buy Clarbrune water because it comes from Wisconsin. I don't buy other sparkling water. Like I legit make that decision and I'll be like, oh, that flavor looks good. Yeah, but it's not from Wisconsin. So I don't buy it. Or like Wisco Pop. I spend a little bit more money. I think just being aware of how impactful those purchases are on the community for all the small business owners. And like going to the store and instead of buying Ritz crackers, buying Potter's crackers. Or, you know, like I just think it's so important. And I don't know when I mean, when I was younger, I guess I just wasn't aware of it. I wouldn't say that I wasn't raised that way because I don't even know if there was such a market for it that there is now. Like there's so many small businesses now. And maybe, I don't know. I don't remember it being that way when I was younger, but I also was young.
I'm told that your chips, Slide chips, are going to be available soon in the Brewers Stadium. How did you make that happen?
I don't have a purchase order for them yet, but I've been talking to them for a very long time. Last year, or so every month, Madison College does a dinner with a chef. And the culinary students like put together this spread of food, and then you can go and the chef is interviewed and you sit in this room and you pay to go, and then the chef makes you dinner. Plus the culinary students make this spread. And it's just like a long interview process. It's a long interview and it's, I don't know, it was a super fun event. Anyway, I found out about the event. And the chef from Miller Park was going to be at the event. And I was like, all I've ever wanted to do was be in Miller Park. Like, as soon as I started branding the potato chips, I was like, Slide sounds like it should be at a baseball stadium because like you slide into a base. Like, I was like convinced. I'm like, we need to be at Miller Park. But, you know, chugging along and doing festivals and catering and the food cart. So it never was top of mind. But then when I decided I was really going to focus on chips about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I started looking for opportunities. I'm like, how would I ever get into Miller Park? How would I ever get there? The chef was going to be at Madison College. And I was like, well, I'm going to buy tickets to this dinner and I'm going to bring him potato chips. And I like raised my hand during his Q&A and I said, how hard is it to get products into Miller Park? Do you have to have a sponsorship? And he kind of talked about it a little bit. And I was like, okay. Said it was kind of difficult, but they do focus on local and blah, blah, blah. And so at the end of the event, I walked up to him. I actually brought one of my employees with me because I am not the best at sales and I needed like support. And she was very outgoing and brought him up the bag. And I was like, we were like, I know this is inappropriate, but I brought you these and wanted you to test them because I think you should have them at Miller Park. And then I like did like the normal things I do after I bring samples to people. I followed them on Instagram and I liked them on Facebook and like, you know, tried to keep myself or the brand, the chips at least top of mind. Well, in August, I got an email saying, I got your potato chips at an event in Madison. I loved them. I put a Post-it note on my calendar to contact you to talk to you about next season. I've been buying them at Metcalf's in Wauwatosa ever since you brought me samples.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, ah! In the middle of Woodman's when I got the email shopping for a catering. And I was like awkwardly cry laughing in the produce department. Is this real? Really be happening? And so I ended up going to Miller Park and he was meeting him. Like I got to go in the basement and see what happens there and brought him more samples. And then we talked about some potential flavors that I could develop for Miller Park that were more Wisconsin.
Oh.
Because I have most of my flavors are pretty spicy. Well, 2 of my flavors are spicy. One is, unique. So he wanted some different flavors. And so I worked for a couple months trying to develop these new flavors and sent him the samples of the new flavors. And he got back to me and he said, great. And I had to negotiate pricing because they were looking for a certain price point. And so I sent another email and I was waiting and didn't hear back. And I sent another email and I didn't hear back. And then 7 weeks after that email, I got an email back and I was like, they haven't forgotten about me. So I don't have an order and I don't know where they will place my product once we're there, but I'm pretty confident that we will be there starting March 26th on opening day.
But still, talk about the great example of being a good self-promoter. That was kind of epic. Your plan of being there and then bringing your support system with you, that's amazing.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I don't know. Crazy. That's what you have to be a little bit crazy to be an entrepreneur.
Crazy in a good way, for sure. I know the slide chips are available in lots of places, but generally speaking, where can we find them?
The Metcalf stores, the Willie Street Co-ops, Jennifer Street Market, Festival Foods. We're at Miller & Sons in Verona now. We're going to be in Piggly Wiggly and Wanakee and Sauk City sometime within the next week. We just got into those stores. A lot of the tap rooms and bars around town we've gotten into. We find craft beer goes good with gourmet potato chips, so that's something we've been working on. So hopefully you can't miss them.
Excellent. Well, Christine, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm sorry it took so long to get this organized.
No, worth it. Thanks again to Chiristine Ameigh. She is one amazing lady, and I loved learning about how she makes a conscious effort to use her business as one more way to elevate others. You can find us on Facebook at Lead the Way Podcast to follow all updates for future episode content. This episode was brought to you by the time and talent of Buzz Kemper and Tyler Willenbrink. I'm Anna Gauker. Until next time.